Welcome, everybody, yet another episode of the Wrestling vs. the World podcast. If you're enjoying your day, sweet. If not, then what the hell ever. So I thought I wanted to go over this obscure subject, because, I don't think anybody's truly looked into this. I wanted to talk about the downfall of Rob Conway. Former tag team champion, he was part of La Resistance, and all that stuff. And I saw this crazy period where, he seemed to be on a winning streak. He was doing stuff on Heat and Raw. And then just out of nowhere, it just went downhill because by the start of his losing streak all the way to his last televised match, he had 43 televised matches. And there's one inconsistency that's on his Wikipedia page that I have to correct during this. So we're going to start where it all happened. October 31st, 2005 episode of Raw, where his first loss happens technically, he gets himself disqualified against Eugene by hitting him with a steel chair. I mean, not a good way to really end your undefeated streak, even though you didn't get pinned, but still, a loss is a loss. Second match, there was a tag match at Taboo Tuesday, where himself and Tyson Tomko lost to Eugene and his voted partner Jimmy Superfly Snuka, who pinned Conway with the Superfly Splash. So there's his first televised pinfall loss after this streak. Then right after this, November 7, 2005 episode of Raw, he gets an Intercontinental title match against Ric Flair and loses via the figure 4 leg lock. And then this is where things don't look pretty. A couple weeks later, he has his next match on the November 21st, 2005 episode of Raw, which clearly started during the break, because then when they come back from commercial, Tajiri has Rob Conway and the Tarantula, and then JBL runs in, attacks them both. It's a no contest, so it's not a win, not a loss, but still no contest, so there's no winner there. Now, some of these dates I'm going to give an asterisk to because some of these dates I'm going to give also the US and also the UK airings here because with the files that I've got here. But his fifth match here, December 2nd, 2005 episode of Heat, he loses to Chavo Guerrero with the Gory Bomb, and this was after Chavo stopped being Kerwin White. So this was not pleasant. Now the sixth match I don't have. I don't have this episode of Heat, and I cannot find it anywhere. But according to the December 9, 2005 episode of Heat, he lost to Sean Morley. You know him as the adult film star character whose wrestling name I'm not gonna say because I have no respect for that individual. I think you can guess what movie he did. Now the seventh match, December 16, 2005 episode of Heat. He loses to Chavo Guerrero via the Frog Splash. So, the losses are starting to rack up here. The next one, eighth match, I also don't have. Also cannot find this, but December 30th, 2005 episode of Heat. He loses to Viscera. This is going to be a recurring name here. Then on the January 9, 2006 episode of Raw, he loses to Chavo yet again via the Frog Splash. So now, we're back on one of the main card shows and all that. Now, here's the inconsistency here, because on Wikipedia it says that once this losing streak began that I just mentioned, he would only have one win to break this losing streak, which is not true, because on the January 20, 2006 episode of Heat, he defeated an enhancement talent guy named Michael Youngblood, who kind of looked like a Wish.com version of Tatanka, and he beat him with the swinging neckbreaker. This is one of only two wins that we're going to talk about here with this episode, but this was technically the first win that he had in the last few months. So he did technically snap the losing streak. Next up, match number 11 on the January 23rd, 2006 episode of Raw. He lost in the Fatal 4-Way Battle Royal for an entry in the Royal Rumble match. Big Show won that. Then you jump forward the next month on the February 17, 2006 episode of Heat. I'm just going to go by the US ones for these ones now, because I got these typed up here in the screenshots and I'm not going to memorize them, but the February 17, 2006 episode of Heat, he loses to Viscera with the two-handed choke bomb, which he called the Sex Drive. Mine's dead now. The next week, February 24, 2006 episode of Heat, he loses to Eugene with the backslide, because he was trying to go for his swinging neckbreaker, but Eugene out-wrestled him. He out-wrestled by a guy who is quote-unquote special in character. Match number 14. A couple weeks later on the March 10, 2006 episode of Heat, he loses to Goldust in what looks like a running sleeper slam. That's the best description I can give the move, but he loses to Goldust. The following week, The March 17, 2006 episode of Heat, he once again loses to Viscera with that two-handed choke bomb, aka the sex drive. It's really repetitive. 2 weeks later, March 31st, 2006 Heat, loses to Chavo with the frog splash again. He's losing to a guy who eventually will not be able to beat Hornswoggle. Then he's on the WrestleMania 22 pre-show Battle Royal, which he loses because Viscera wins this one. I mean, like, it wasn't on, like, televised or anything, but it was later released on the DVD for WrestleMania, but it's noted. Match number 18. Now we're getting some Raw matches here. April 10, 2006, he loses to Rob Van Dam via the 5-star Frog Splash. And this was kind of helping RVD get some momentum going against Shelton Benjamin at Backlash. Following week, April 17, 2006 episode of Raw, he gets his ass handed to him by Kane with the chokeslam. And it was also around this time where Conway was starting to change his look with his hair dye and facial hair and is like, I think it was its sideburns and everything. This might have been the Raw where, like, during the commercial break, he got punched by Triple H during his entrance and then had the match with Kane. And I'll try to speculate on his downfall for, like, this heat and everything after we go through all the losses. Then, April 30th, 2006, speaking of heat, he loses to Goldust with the Scoop Power Slam. Almost like a Snapple and just BAM! Then, one of the more infamous ones. May 1st, 2006 episode of Raw, he loses to Kane in what was essentially no disqualification of sorts, with Shawn Michaels as a special guest referee because Kane was doing the whole May 19 anger storyline. And while wearing a May 19 shirt that special guest referee Shawn Michaels put on him, Kane destroyed Rob Conway. Now, the match mentioned in his Wikipedia page that says was a win, it technically is. May 12, 2006 episode of Heat, himself and Victoria defeated Tori Wilson and Viscera in a mixed tag match, with Victoria getting the Widow's Peak pin on Tori Wilson. So, it was another win, but again, this was the second of only 2 matches he has in a win on television at this point. The following week, May 19, 2006, he loses to Hacksaw Jim Duggan with that 3-point stance clothesline. You're losing to a guy who is probably 20 to 30 years older than you by this point. The following week, May 26, 2006 episode of Heat, he loses to Charlie Haas with an inverted DDT. Charlie Haas wasn't really doing much at this moment. The following week, June 2nd, 2006 episode of Heat, he loses Carlito through the backstabber. Now that's not cool. The next week, June 9, 2006, Viscera. Do I have to say what it was? You already know. The following week, June 16, 2006 episode of Heat, he loses to Snitsky via the Big Boot. And this was a point, to my recollection, Snitsky was technically a babyface. Because I know he had a bit of a babyface once 2006 was going along. The following week, June 23rd, 2006, he loses to Sean Morley with the money shot. Nutcase. The next week, June 30, 2006 episode of Heat, he loses to Eugene via a small package. Dun dun dun. Then the next couple of episodes of Raw, himself and Matt Striker lose to the Highlanders. July 3rd, Matt Striker refuses to tag in, and he gets hit with the Scott Drop, which looked like kind of like a double team flapjack of sorts. And then the next week, July 10, same thing. Striker just does not tag in, and Conway takes the pin. Then on July 21st, 2006 episode of Heat, takes a big boot from Snitsky and loses again. A week later, July 28, 2006, he loses to Eugene again, but this time with the Stone Cold Stunner. So that's going wild. Then you get a change here, because his next televised match is the August 18, 2006 episode of Heat. And I guess this is where it begins, where he's kind of more of a tweener role, because he's just looking to defeat anybody possible. Because now he's going against faces and heels, and this time he's going against Matt Striker, who's being like, oh, summer's ending, school's back in session, and Conway's pretty much attacking him after everything. But Striker still beats him after dropping him headfirst into the bottom turnbuckle, which was exposed, and then rolled him up while using the ropes as leverage to pin Rob Conway. So, yeah, that still, even Striker's beating him. Now, on the August 25th, 2006 episode of Heat, he's going against Shelton Benjamin, and Benjamin pretty much says that, hey, I want world-class competition, but you don't measure up, Rob Conway. So it's saying, yeah, you're not good enough. So, Conway's, like I said, essentially tweener here. He tries to go for the swinging neck breaker. Benjamin grabs the ropes to block the move and then pins him while also holding the bottom rope, so Benjamin wins here again. Then September 1st, 2006, loses to Snitsky with the big boot again. 4 weeks later, September 26th or 29th, 2006, loses to Sean Morley, money shot, keep it in your pants. The following, October 16, 2006 episode of Raw, Carlito beats him with a backstabber. It was like, he can't beat anybody now. And then it was like, when I was going through this, it was by this point where I just said, stop losing. Because November 24, 2006 episode of he once again loses to Grandpa Jim Duggan. 3-point stance clothesline. Rarely did you ever really see that move getting hit during this period. Then after this, the following week, December 1st, 2006 episode of he loses to Super Crazy via a standing moonsault in the ring. Not from the top rope, but just in the ring. Loses to Super Crazy, who was not getting paid much, and eventually left the company because he wasn't earning enough to not go into debt or whatever was going on. 2 weeks later, December 15th, 2006 episode of Heat, same thing. Loses to another standing moonsault to Super Crazy. Then a few days later, the December 18th, 2006 episode of Raw, I mentioned this in the Eugene episode, Edge wins this WWE Championship #1 Contender Battle Royal, so Conway does not win this one. And then match number 43, January 1st, 2007 episode of Raw, Conway is about to face Jeff Hardy, and he declares if his New Year's resolution is to be a winner, and if he loses this match, he will quit Raw. And in 21 seconds, he loses Jeff Hardy with a sunset flip roll up out of the corner. And Vince eventually comes out. He's like, "Oh, Rob Conway, you're not gonna quit Raw, because Rob Conway, you're fired." And Conway was technically released from his contract a few months later. So yeah, that was a mighty big downfall for the guy who, like, his music sucked. Like, that did his character no favors. He wasn't having any notable promos and everything. But I think from, like, I've heard, like, going on YouTube saying that he got heat because he did not like his entrance music. They may not have done any favors. But it's like, can you blame him? The music was bad. Dun 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 dun, just look at me. No, thank you. And most likely the company fell out of, like, favors with him because, like, his physique as time went along did not look any better compared to back late 2005, because I read Hardcore Holly's autobiography, and he's pretty much stated that Rob Conway might have been on steroids, like, he implied that, and saying that Conway was like, oh, what am I supposed to, like, when the wellness policy kicked in, said that he had to get off the stuff, he's like, oh, I can't do this without the juice, aka steroids. And I think that's what caused the company to lose favor in him. And Hardcore Holly even said in his book, it's like, once the company loses favor in you in any way, you're screwed. So I think that may have led to his downfall as well within the company's eyes. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What did you think about Rob Conway during this period? Do you have any memories, like, of any fondness or of any severity about his losing streak that we had here for over a year? Like I said, he won 2 matches out of 43. Like, holy crap. He could only beat a job guy and win a tag match where he did not get the decision. Then he was losing to everybody else. Constantly to Eugene, to Viscera, to Chavo Guerrero, Jim Duggan, Snitsky, Goldust. Like, holy crap. Like, bravo to him for, like, reinventing himself, like, becoming NWA World Champion later on and getting a resurgence in his career. But, dude, that was just... Like, I honestly feel sorry for Conway because nobody wants to be an enhancement talent guy in WWE. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed today's episode of the podcast, folks, please remember, leave a like, subscribe to the bell, turn on here on YouTube, comment what you thought below, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks for listening, folks. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace out, and good day, everybody.